Horror is a genre that can turn out a masterpiece once in a blue moon and make a lot of shitty ones after that. It's also not a genre for everybody. Not everybody likes to be scared intentionally, but I do. My favorite kind of horror movies are slashers and just sci-fi related stuff. Slashers are a whole nother can of worms. I guess Halloween started the whole trend, and I can definitely see why. It's just really good and has an instantly iconic villain, Michael Myers. This movie ultimately paved the way for other iconic slashers like Jason Voorhees, Chucky, Freddy Krueger, and many more. It also established a lot of tropes in the slasher subgenre, like the final girl and horny teenagers. I mean, it did lead to a lot of awful sequels, like Halloween 2 is pretty good, and I kind of like 4, but that's about it before I had enough. I draw the line at Paul Rudd chanting stones to stop Michael Myers. My favorite slasher is Chucky. I don't know, but Brad Dourif gives such an awesome character, such an awesome voice that fits so well, and technically it's just his normal voice. Chucky as a franchise is the most consistent slasher franchise I have seen. Franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, you can see where their quality goes down, and by that I mean after their first movie. I did hear a few Friday the 13th sequels are decent, and I think Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is pretty good. But that's about it. But with Chucky, there's just like one okay movie and just one bad movie. I consider the rest of the Chucky movies, and by extension, the TV show, good to great. It definitely has a lot more to do with supernatural. On that note, supernatural horror subgenre houses some of the most iconic franchises in horror history. Take, for example, The Shining, Hellraiser, and the Conjuring franchise, and hell, again, Chucky. I like supernatural horror movies. They are far scarier in some areas. I have a lot of favorites in the supernatural horror genre. Again, Chucky is one of those things. I love it, and some underrated gems are there in as well. Benny Loves You is my favorite example, a British indie horror comedy about a man-child learning to grow out of his childhood by taking down his childhood plush, who seemingly comes alive after his parents die. It's a very fun movie, and I think it's deeply underrated. Horror movies with creatures or monsters always go out of their way to make them look cool and scary, even when the film itself is not that good. Like the recently released Arcadian, the creature design slaps so hard, and A Quiet Place has really cool monsters. Maybe another reason why I love horror so much is because they sometimes can get ridiculously weird at points, like the twist of Late Night with the Devil, where it turns out the main character is trapped in some sort of spiritual loop. But Lighthouse is like probably the weirdest movie ever made, at least from what I've seen. The second It movie ends with Pennywise turning into a giant spider, but then getting defeated by bullying and getting called names. I'm of the opinion that the second It movie is still pretty good, but that ending kind of sucks. Then you have like movies that are classified as horror but aren't really horror movies. For example, Morbius. But I think that's probably because you'll be terrified of how bad it is. One of my favorite horror movies, Evil Dead 2, is literally almost about nothing other than a man is in a cabin trying to defeat some monsters. I also like how time travel is used at the end of the movie, and Army of Darkness is probably my favorite of the trilogy because it's just so fun. But it does stray away from the first two movies in the horror department, as it much more relies on the comedy than, actual scares. Evil Dead 1 is just good though. Ash was kinda boring in that movie. My other favorite horror movies include Dream Scenario, Color Out of Space, Mandy, Train to Busan, The Thing, and Child's Play. 3 of those have Nicolas Cage, and I really love them. since they have such weird concepts, but they execute them really well. The Thing is one classic horror movie in there, and it's just a blast from start to finish. And the ending is really good since it doesn't let the audience know if the monster is actually dead or not. Train to Busan is an excellent zombie thrill ride, and the characters are really cool. And, well, the first Child's Play is just a banger. On the point of classic horror remakes, remakes in general are pretty divisive. But we sometimes get some really good ones, like the Planet of the Apes movies, and yes, The Thing starring Kurt Russell is also a remake, so yeah, we sometimes can get some great remakes. But then we get remakes like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake and the second, yeah, not first, but second Black Christmas remake. Those are absolute garbage, especially the Black Christmas one. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I do remember that the villains in the movie are all white men, and for some reason that's the point. White men are evil, I guess. Then you have what studios are trying to do lately, and that's making requels. Sequels that are still in the original continuity, but forget other past movies. Halloween has been doing this since H2O. Scream has kind of been doing it. I mean, they call 5 and 6 a requel, at least the fans do, but it doesn't do anything that everybody defines as a requel. To be honest, the definition of requels are thrown around a lot. Foreign films are kind of different than American horror movies. I think they can be even weirder, like, take for example the Japanese horror movie House. That movie is just really insane, but also just fun. It's like Evil Dead, but for, like, girls. But then again, I don't think girls watch Japanese horror movies. Horror is the one genre that just speaks to me since I really just like scary movies. Morbius is definitely the scariest movie I've seen though.